today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I am your host, Caroline Marshall, founder of virtual assistant agency Upsource. And today I'm with Danielle Wallington, who is a mum of two young boys, founder of The Kindred, the non-networky network and co-working community for female founders, and also FLOCKHERE, an exciting new app connecting you to places to work from and people to work with. It is coming in 2023. It all started when Danielle had her first baby, with her job being within the events industry. She found the industry so inflexible for a mother who wanted to return to work. She left and started Milk and Fizz. From ungettable evenings and workshops to blogger panels and expert advice, Milk and Fizz offered a new kind of social calendar, a series of events inspiring mothers to help build and feel part of a community set on banishing those feelings of isolation and loneliness that are often shared in motherhood. This soon turned into The Kindred, a business she then completely pivoted and reached female founders online and supported them during a pandemic with online events, learnings, networking, and workshops. 2022, Danielle launched a crowdfunding campaign for her business FLOCKHERE, an app that is launching this year. Danielle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
And what a CV you have.
I know, I feel like I'm on This Is Your Life.
And today we're going to bring in your husband who supported you through all of these. And I was just saying as well, because you've had a few rebrands of some of those things, what an excellent namer of businesses you are. And so I'm setting up your next consultancy.
No, I've got ideas constantly for new businesses. So that can be another one. Do that one next year.
I will definitely be coming to you because I feel like it's a fluke whenever I've named it businesses. So Danielle, I love hearing about how mums who have started their businesses and their career paths that are led to it. I've obviously given a little snippet there, but tell us a bit about your career pre-babies and pre-Milk and Fizz.
Yeah, so I had a few different careers. I didn't go to the traditional route or university. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I always loved organising events. I was always an organizer for my friends with parties and things, and I just loved bringing people together. So I started in events, and I was an event manager for about 15 years. And then towards the later part of my career, before I had my son, I was doing a lot of corporate events, conferences, things like that. So it was I loved it. It was great, but it was, kept me busy. That's for sure. Quite a stressful job, actually, looking back now. If I think back to it, I don't think I realized how stressful it was at the time. Looking back now, I think I could not do that. I'd need to lie down, I think.
Well, yeah, I think someone who's briefly done events, and sometimes it is part of the job as someone from a business support and EA background. But one thing I always thought about events is, and what I've seen as well, because I think there's a lot of pivoting from events after babies, is it really a suitable, even though it's such a female career, I feel events still in so many ways, is it really suitable once you've got a bedtime you want to get home to?
And I think I was lucky in the sense that I didn't work towards the end part of my career, didn't really work kind of too many late evenings or going away, but we did travel and we did go away to different venues to host the event. So it wasn't, I wouldn't have been around all of the time, and it definitely wouldn't have been a kind of part-time role. So it definitely wasn't conducive to having a small baby, and one of the reasons why I didn't go back there.
Yeah, and so tell us more about Milk and Fizz. Like, at what stage of your motherhood journey did you start this?
I was thinking of this the other day. When you look back, it's not that long ago, but it just feels like a blur. I think so. I was on maternity leave, and I think my son was about 6 months old. And I was unsure whether I wanted to go back to my job, because obviously I didn't, that was the kind of plan. I didn't have a kind of grand plan to leave. But I'd always hoped to go back part-time in some way until I kind of figured out what I wanted to do. So I think that's when I kind of really found Instagram. I'd been on it for a few years, but never really engaged with it that much, just used to post random pictures of my cat. And I just started to chat about motherhood. They always get the best engagement, the cat ones. I found motherhood really hard, and especially when my son was really young, I found it really isolating and lonely, and not having my job I really felt like I'd lost my identity. I didn't really know who I was anymore or what I was supposed to be doing every day. And I found that really difficult. And surprisingly, I really missed that routine of like getting up, going to work in the morning, which is insane because you never think that you're going to miss that. But I really did. So yeah, I just kind of just started chatting about it on Instagram, I think, and just connecting with other people who were feeling the same and feeling a bit lonely. And I just thought, you know what, why don't I just start organizing some events for these mums that aren't focused around the baby? Because back then there was a lot of, you know, baby and toddler events, which are great, but they're also, you know, a little bit boring. If you've just had a baby, you want to actually do something that's not talking about baby poo. So yeah, I just kind of, it just happened. I hate using that word organically, but it literally did just happen. I kind of just tried a few things out and people seemed to really like it. And then when it came to the decision to going back to my job, I put in a flexible request, which unfortunately was denied. So I kind of took that as my sign to go, okay, I'm going to try this kind of running my own business thing. And I think me and my partner discussed it. I was like, I'll try it for like 6 months and see how it goes. But I just ended up absolutely loving it and just being like, I could never imagine going back to, you know, working for someone else or working in an office every day. So it kind of went from there really. And I think it was something that people really needed at the time. So yeah.
I think we can all relate to that. Like the thing you find with identity and your job. I was just saying this to someone recently, actually, that you can't, if you've had a really, like, you know, the privilege of your upbringing, that they're like, go focus on your career, you can go do any job you want, but then they miss the motherhood part
Yeah.
out, and there's still a bit of a penalty for that. And
Yeah.
then you've created this whole identity. You were in events, that's what you did. You had a really fantastic career, and then you got married and decided to go to the next stage, and it's like, oh, all of that, it's, you know, you're either too scared to take maternity leave, which is what I was in, definitely that case with my first, and or you take it and then have a bit of an identity crisis by the sounds of it. So it's really interesting. So with Milk and Fizz, you had some fantastic guests there. What kind of topics did you cover?
Oh, I feel like a bit of everything really. It was really focused on the women, the parents, the mums. So a lot of stuff was about, you know, body confidence, career development, mental health, fashion. Like it was stuff that people were kind of, the conversations I was having with other mums, you know, not feeling right in your body after having kids and feeling a little less confident. So we'd get someone to come and talk about that. Sleep, not the baby sleeping, but us, how do we get more sleep? So it was, I mean, we did a few events for the babies, but it was mainly kind of that well-being for the mums, and mainly just bringing them together so they could just feel like they were meeting like-minded people and being able to be honest about motherhood rather than kind of saying, oh yeah, it's all lovely, when really everyone knows, you know, it's not. So I think just it was, the speakers we had were amazing, but I think it was more about, you know, the bringing people together and the conversations that people were having, and feeling like you were less alone in that, I think was what I loved about it.
Yeah, and that's something like oh gosh, Danielle, I'm gonna come out as like a fangirl here. But I was like following you way before. I don't know how.
I was gonna say, yeah, we've like years, haven't we?
I've like followed you for such a long time. And and obviously I joined Milk and Biz when I did end up starting my own business, but I totally followed you pre-business. I don't, probably it's your honesty. I was like, what have I let myself in for? But also keeping that identity of wanting to run a business and wanting, you know, you're not there just you never posted about poo and stuff. That was the sort of stuff I was not interested in. I was like, I know my kid's gonna poo, but I don't really want to like talk about this on social media right now. And respect people that do want that community, that's fine. But something that you said is about, I feel like one of your values has always been about cultivating that community, and you're really, so how do you go about that? What's been your advice for if you're wanting to start a community?
I mean, do you know what, I think it all depends what kind of community you want to create and the kind of purpose of it. But for me, I've always done with each of my businesses, and it's always been something where I've been struggling with, or I've needed help with something, and then I've just started talking about that, and then I found other people, whether that's been online or networking events, like-minded people that have gone, oh yeah, I'm struggling with that as well, wouldn't it be amazing if this existed? And then I think, oh, I'll do that. And so it's kind of just finding people that are not necessarily similar to you, but going through similar kind of struggles at the same time, and just, relating to them and just kind of being authentic and talking about your experience. And then you're likely to find other people that are, wanting to connect, and then you start to kind of form this community of people that have similar interests and similar desires and needs. So I think it's just being honest about what it is that you want or that you're struggling with, and then potentially just finding people who are in a similar boat.
Yeah, no, that's I think great advice, just being yourself and being authentic with that, because I think that's probably, while we all like follow people, engage with people and really relate to people who are doing that ourselves, I think is such a struggle. I don't know whether it is for you, because you seem to do it really well, but I think for a lot of people, because that's why people struggle with social media, it's like how much is too much kind of thing.
Yes, and I do feel like I am a bit of an oversharer. I actually find it really cathartic as well online, and I probably say things online that I would never say to, like, I think my partner once watched. He's not on Instagram, and he's like, "Oh my God, you never say things like that to me." I'm like, I just find it just easier to, but no, I would tell a complete stranger that I just met, like, my life history, and I'm a bit like that. So.
That's helpful. So there's no such thing as oversharing, just go.
No, yeah, basically.
Um, so how did you go about going from Milk and Fizz to Milk and Biz then? Because this was
Yes.
pre-COVID, was that right? You
This was
started Milk and Biz?
Milk and Biz was oh my goodness, about 2018, I think. So it was the same year I started Milk and Fizz.
Oh, okay.
So I started Milk and Fizz, I think, in the January, and then I launched the membership in the October or the November, I think, of that year. But it was basically, again, like what we said, I was doing these events, meeting all of these women who had just had kids, and the conversations, and we had a lot of we used to do events with like sponsors and exhibitors, so a lot of the kind of local businesses would come and exhibit at the events. So they were running their own business, and a lot of the conversations were around how they struggled to go back to their old jobs, or they weren't able to go back to their jobs, in similar situation to me, or they didn't want to after having kids, and they wanted to set something up on their own, but they were put off by the traditional networking groups that were around, and they kind of felt like it wasn't for them. They started really early in the morning, all these breakfast meetings that start at 7:30, but you can't always make them if you're dropping kids off at school, or it just felt a bit stuffy and uncomfortable. So there wasn't really anything at the time in the area that was just really relaxed and informal, and a way, again, just to connect people that were thinking of setting up a business or already running one. So it just went from there. I thought, okay, there's loads of people here that need this. I need it because I've just started my business. So why don't I start, create something for them? So it kind of went from there, and we started doing like co-working events, and then it just grew from there. So again, it's just conversations that you have with your kind of audience about what it is that they're struggling with and they need, and then if there's a gap, then just start a business.
Exactly. And I love that, because there's times people talk about the sort of networking they go to, and you have to do pitches and then listen. I'm like, that's so not my style of networking. I just want to go and see who I end up speaking to. And I think networking with intention is good, like making sure you end up in the room with people that is, whether you're going for fundraising and want to go for in a room where there's going to be investors, or you've got a service-based business like myself, and you might potentially end up there with clients, going in to do a pitch and then listen to a bunch of other pitches over coffee is just definitely not my vibe.
No, and you can see people kind of talking to you, thinking, actually, you're not of use to me, and like looking over your shoulder to see the next person they can talk to. It's just it's
yeah, no, I accidentally attended one of those online when like someone roped me into it when my kid was like 8 weeks old, and it was at like 6 a.m. and I was like, why am I here?
Do it from the bed.
Yeah, oh gosh, I can't believe I got roped into that so soon. And so you transitioned Milk and Biz during the pandemic.
Yes.
Talk about that, because I'm so fascinated by, you had kids at home to deal with, and two of them, and so it's amazing what you managed to do. So how did you go about that?
I think, do you know, it was a distraction, I think, at the time, because I'd had my youngest in the November 2019. So he
Yeah.
was 4 months old when we went into lockdown.
Wow.
And then my eldest was 3. So I I just again found it horrendous. He was obviously not, and he was not like my eldest who slept through the night really young and was amazing.
Oh, you had the same as me, the second one.
Yeah, my eldest at 3 months old was sleeping through the night. And so then when my youngest was 3 months, I was like, you're supposed to be doing the same now. Why aren't you doing the same as him? Like this is, and I mean, to be honest, he's what, 3.5 now, and he's still not sleeping through the night. So he was born on Halloween. So that says everything. But yeah, I wasn't sleeping that great. And I just found it really difficult, kind of, my partner had just started a new role, so he, was having to kind of get stuck into that. So I was looking after them during the day and then running the business in the night. So I just kind of threw myself into it. I think we had so much loss of control, didn't we, of what was going on. I felt like that was the thing that I could take control of, and I knew that people would really needed it at the time. So I just, yeah, I ended up continuing to run the Kindred. I can't remember if I rebranded at the time, then it was still Milk and Beers. No, it was Milk and Beers. And then Milk and Fizz, which was the in-person events, I then thought, oh, we'll do some online events with them as well every week. And I turned that into an online subscription. So I was running both at the same. I look back now and I honestly just think I must have just been in survival mode of just adrenaline going, because that was what was getting me through. So yeah, I found it really tough, but strangely the work, I was just enjoying it so much, and it was just a big distraction for me. I think I just threw everything into it and really focused on that.
Yeah, I think it's so true what you said about survival mode. I think I went into that when I realized I didn't have a job during lockdown. I was like, right.
Yeah, I need
How
to
am
do
I
something.
yeah, how am I going to get through this and have something for me as well? And so yeah, on behalf of that, thank you, because I came to your events and was part of your community in the early days of Upsource, and it was very much needed, being pregnant and only online during that time.
Yes.
It was definitely needed.
Yeah.
So how did your idea from Milk and Biz to the Kindred, how did your idea for FLOCKHERE come about?
Um, Again, I feel like everything's just been like a listening to people around me and then deciding what comes next, I think. So we've been running co-working meetups as part of the Kindred since we've started, for like 4.5 years, 5 years nearly. And we would have them, and women would come together and we'd work together in different venues. But then when we weren't running them, one of the questions I always got asked the most was, oh, do you know anywhere good places where I could work for the afternoon? Or I've got a couple of hours in between meetings. Could you recommend anywhere? And obviously I've been using these venues for years, and what a lot of women that are working from home struggle with is you've got, not a lot of choice really. You're either at home or you sign up to co-working venues, which are not the cheapest of places to work from, and they can be a little bit inflexible as well. If you're not going to pay all that money every month and then use them every single day. A lot of the members are mums, so they're picking children up from school hours and things. And so I just thought there's got to be something where if I'm not running them all the time, there should be some kind of like venue directory where people can access recommended spaces where women can work from, but then also bringing in the community part of that, where they can meet other people to work with, because working on your own, as you know, is really isolating and lonely. And just having people around you to be, even if you're not working with them, I don't know if you've heard of body doubling, where you're actually more productive if you've got other people with you. You get more done. So I just thought, yeah, I just thought that there's got to be something, there's got to be a way that we can create some kind of platform for this, so that it kind of, again, was just the conversations I was having with people. And I just thought, oh, there's no one else doing this exactly this way. So let's get in there quickly before someone
Yeah.
else does it.
No, and it's such a good point as well, because I signed up to one last year and it wasn't too expensive, but it was a cost each month. And then I got there and there was like no vibe. And I just would rather be in a cafe and spend my
Hmm.
money there. And yeah, it's so true. Just because there is something there doesn't mean it's the right way to for you, or the right place for you. And if you have
Yes.
lots of options, it's a
Yes.
clever idea.
Yeah. It's all, and I think that's what I wanted. I wanted to give women the choice of where they wanted to work from, rather than not having, or having very limited options. So it's about having a choice of, do I want to go work in that cafe, or do I want to work in the co-working space for a day, or so giving women the choice back, I think, rather than not having any.
That's fantastic. So you came up with the idea. So how did you go about? Because I think this will be a question lots of listeners would have if they're in the stage of thinking of, a tech software or app they want to
Yes.
develop.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your fundraising choice in a minute, but how did you go about finding out what you needed to bring your idea into the app world?
Um, to be honest, right at the beginning, I didn't really have those conversations, probably with the techie people that I should have. I just thought, let me just see if people would be interested in this first, and then they'd, they would. This is something that they would want to be part of. And luckily for me, I knew somebody already who was a developer, who I had a conversation with, I think at some point before I started crowdfunding, about, would this be possible? This is what I'm thinking. And he was like, yeah, all great, no problem, and kind of gave me the choices of what kind of app it would be, and how much it would cost. And so luckily, because I know it's quite a tricky thing for a lot of people when they're developing an app, I had someone that I already knew and trusted to have that conversation with. So yeah, but right at the beginning, I kind of didn't think that. I just thought, oh yeah, that'll work. We'll just make it up as we go along, and then we'll get the technical stuff in.
Okay, and no, that's no, it's a very interesting answer, because I think sometimes some women will probably hold themselves back, won't they? Because they
Mm,
feel they're not confident and they need to have all the answers. And I think that can be like, it's a well-known difference between men and women. Like, women feel they're underqualified,
yeah,
and whereas a
yeah,
man might just be like, I've had this idea, it's great, I'm going to push ahead.
yes,
And
yes,
I think
yeah.
that's really valuable to share from someone who's like, wow, I just went along with it. And
Just make just make it up as you go along,
yeah,
and
we all are.
yeah, no one really knows what they're doing. Everyone's making it up.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also fascinated about female founders and fundraising. I think that's
Mm,
something I really want to highlight on this podcast,
mm,
because it's dire right now
yeah,
how
yeah,
many female
yeah.
founders get fundraising. So why did you choose crowdfunding for your source of funding?
Yeah, I mean, because of what you said, so I kind of looked at my options once I'd spoken to the app developer about how much this would cost. I didn't have that, spare cash in my bank account, unfortunately. And so the options were obviously going for investment, applying for grants. And I've been aware of crowdfunding before, but I not really thought about it for this option. And when I looked into funding, and I've been aware of like how awful it is for female founders to get investment for a while. So I think it was always one of those options I was a little bit put off by, thinking, well, that I'm never going to get funding for this. No one's going to give me money. I think 1% of VC funding goes to female founders. So it it wasn't really an option for me in a way. And I'd had a conversation with someone about crowdfunding, and everything that they were talking about, I just thought, this is what I've been doing for the past 5 years, but I've just not been asking people for money. For like, it is everything about what I've been doing. I thought I could really do this. And the whole premise of the app is about building community, and bringing people together. So I just thought, it's a really great way as well, crowdfunding, for kind of testing the market and finding out if your product is viable. Um, because you're kind of putting it out there to say, would you be interested in this? And if you get enough people to say yes, then it's a goer. Whereas if you've kind of just launched a new business out of nowhere, you don't know actually,
Yeah.
does the market really want this? So it's a really great way of testing that out. So yeah, I went down the crowdfunding route, and
And
yeah.
what was your target? So how did you go about making sure because you smashed it, but
Yeah.
how did you manage that in
Uh,
a sense of the world?
yeah. So I think originally, I think once we did all the costs, I got all the costs through from the kind of tech side and things. It was about, I think it was just over 18,000, I think was the total. And I opted for the all or nothing option, where if I didn't raise that money, I think it was 30 days. If I didn't raise the money in 30 days, I wouldn't have got anything, wouldn't have received
Oh,
anything.
wow.
Because you can take what you make as well, that is an option. But again, I think somebody said to me in a conversation that actually, if you don't make the money that you want, is the product really worth building, because you're not getting what. So I kind of thought, actually, you're probably right. I like taking risks. Let's go for this. And I think remember halfway through thinking this was a really bad idea. Why didn't I go for the take the money option? Yeah, it was possibly one of the hardest things I've ever done, I think. It really it took up so much of my time. And I've spoken to people that crowdfund regularly, and they've got like big teams where they have like a whole project working on it, and it's, you know, this big thing where it was just me, and then obviously trying to run, you know, my membership and having the kids as well. It was full on.
Mm.
But it was really good because I just had that one focus. Like, I was so determined. I was like, I'm going to do this. And if this doesn't work out, I'll find another way of raising the money. But I think just having that focus for, you know, the 30 days or whatever it was in the end, I think it was 35 days in the end. It seemed to work. I just talked about it all the time.
No, you did a fantastic job. I remember you saying to me as well, there's several routes you can do down crowdfunding, because was it there was quite a few incentives you could
Rewards
get with
based,
yours.
yeah, the
Yeah.
rewards based one. Yeah, I think you can do, so like the donation, if it's charity, you can do equity based, which I did consider. A lot of people do equity based crowdfunding, or you can do rewards based. So when people donate, when people pledge an amount towards your campaign, they get something back in return. So it's not like they're just kind of giving you money, you're actually giving them something back
Yeah.
in return. So that was the option that kind of felt right for me. So that's the one I chose.
And for people who don't know, what kind of rewards did you offer them in return for investment?
Yeah, so we did a few things. Like, I partnered with a few businesses who gave some things with Circle Planner, amazing female founded business. She did some planners
Oh,
that
wow.
people could pledge for. We had like beauty, like face masks and skincare and things like that. And then we also had access to the app, so people could kind of order a month's worth or 6 months worth. We had sponsorship opportunities as well. So and we had like, I think, tickets to like a big concert in our area. So I kind of tried to partner with as many businesses as possible with a kind of similar marketplace, to see if they wanted to kind of collaborate, and then we put things on offer for people to pledge for.
Perfect. No, because that's I'm sure really helpful for someone who's considering it, of what their options are and how to go
Yes,
about that.
there are
So
so many options. Yeah.
so something I briefly wanted to touch on as well was that actually Flock Here was named, was it Work Here previously?
Yes.
And you have recently renamed due to a trademark issue. I'm actually speaking to a lawyer on this podcast who specializes in trademarks, so it'll be really interesting, because I
Yes.
think it's a really interesting thing to chat about. So what happened in that process that made you change the name?
Yeah, so it's like, look, again, it's one of those things. It's such a complex law that you think the amount of people that I speak to that probably don't get it checked out enough, or they think they've had a little search, but actually it's not as in depth as they should be. I did what I thought was my searches. You know, I'm very good with kind of, you know, if you go on holiday, I'm like, oh, what holiday's the best one? You know, I did my proper search. And didn't find anything. And then when you actually submit the application, you get a letter through to say, you know, there's similar companies here that might kind of object to your mark. And I did get somebody come back and say, you know, it wasn't the
Oh,
same
really?
name, it wasn't exactly the same. It was, but they don't base it on that. It's if it's phonetically similar, or if it's sounds similar, or if it's in a similar category, then they can contest it. And if they've had the mark longer than you have, then they've got obviously the rights on it. So yes, I did try and negotiate, but whilst I was waiting for them to come back, I had an idea of, obviously I was thinking of backup names. And when I came across FLOCKHERE, I just thought, actually, this is so much better. So if they come back and say, yeah, have it, I'll be like, no, I don't want to. So I think it was, and again, it's one of those things where I do think it was meant to happen. And I'm kind of glad it happened in a way, because I'm now more aware of that, and advise so many people who are setting up new businesses to make sure their IP is protected. So yeah, I think the name it was meant to happen. I think it was definitely meant to happen, but it was
Part of your story now.
And someone else told me that,
autobiography.
One Direction or something had a different name, and then they changed it. I was like, oh, that's okay. Then I'll be like, Direction.
I was trying to think of any more examples and then thought of a really bad one, so I won't come up with that. But that's great. Yeah, exactly. One Direction. We'll keep with that.
Yeah.
I also love something I'm really interested in, because I took maternity leave 6 months after I had my second child. Well, no, 6 months after I launched my business, I took maternity with my second child. You had your second child while running Milk and Biz, was it? Yeah. So what did your maternity leave look like? What did you plan at all for it, or have an idea of what it would look like?
No. Do you know what? Again, I think it was all just a bit of a blur at the time, because we'd gone. So I think in my head I said I was going to take 6 months, and I was worried at the time. I'll be completely honest, because I had been running the membership for about 6 or 7 months when I became pregnant, and I remember thinking, oh no, like, this isn't going to work and everyone's going to leave. And I remember someone saying, Danielle, you've set up this community specifically to support, what are you talking about? But you just have, I think, just from previous, if you become pregnant when you work for an employer, your immediate response is, oh no, what are they going to think? But I planned to take longer off, but again, because I think of what was happening in the world and the situation, I ended up going back or doing more things a lot sooner. But I think because I was a little bit more relaxed second time round, I remember taking him to like co-working sessions with me, and like I plonked him in the corner in the car seat when we were doing workshops, and it wasn't that case of like, oh, I feel like I have to work, and kind of, how some people can kind of struggle with that. I think it was helping me at the time. I think just laying in bed wasn't an option with like a 3-year-old running about. So
that's true.
Yeah, I just thought, well, he's still able to sleep when I can take him out with me. Let's just make the most of this. So I definitely didn't take as long as I did with my first. But I think that was more of a choice rather than a kind of, I have to do this.
Or do you think you ever struggle? I mean, I proactively make myself switch off and things, but I think what I've realized over the past 2 maternity leaves and things, it's just not in me to stop working fully, or my brain to stop working. I definitely took a good break with my second, but you
can't stop the brain and the thoughts, can you? And I think with good intention, I can say, okay, I'm not going to do anything, but then I'll be thinking, oh, this would be really good, and oh my god, I can create this. So I couldn't stop that in my head, I don't think. But I just think it was such a strange, who knows what would have happened if we weren't in lockdown. It could, I probably would have taken some more time out, but I think it was a survival thing. I was like, I have to do this because we're all stuck in the house. So
yeah, exactly. I think that's it as well. You can't that's what I've been learning, is sometimes you really can't relate sometimes, like when people talk about their second children and having to get out and about. I had nowhere to go with my second child, so it was lockdown. So I think it was a weird
you
time,
resent that a bit, don't you, at that time of thinking, actually I didn't get a chance to do that and do all the things, or go to the baby clubs, or go. So I feel like that was taken away from us, so we just had to get on with what we were.
And I don't know whether you feel like this as a second mum. I think it was like, oh, but you had your first, so it's fine. You had your time. Like first time mums might have felt a little bit like that, but this is my first, so I don't know. And it's like, oh, but this is my first second child.
And possibly last. So, you want to like make the most of that time.
It really is, because even if, I don't know how many people plan, or if you switch it off, but some people do switch it off with their second, or are like that. So it's like, oh, it's that little bit of sadness, isn't it? But at the same time, I don't know if Upsource would exist without COVID. So
yeah, exactly. A lot of amazing things happened during that awful time, didn't there? I think with a lot of businesses. we just had to kind of make the most of the situation, I think. And
Yeah, that's so true. And and also something I've spoken a bit about, like some of people I've asked, it's about the term, like, how do you do it? Because I
mm,
think sometimes we can, especially how you did it with a 4-month-old during lockdown. And I know some people, I think for a good few years, people hated this term because it was like, well, no one's asking your husband, Danielle,
mm,
how he does it.
mm,
But at the same time, if we want, you've said it so many times yourself in this chat alone, often mums are doing the school run as well.
yeah,
So it's a worthy conversation to have, because if more of the care is falling on the women, then we need
yes,
to ask them, how are they doing it? And when I've been asked this question, I feel I'm being asked it either by desperate mums who want to know what my secret, if I have a
yes, yeah,
secret,
yeah,
or people who respect it and they're thinking about their own kids at some point and how they'll manage
mm,
their own business, whether it's a man or a woman. So
mm,
how do you feel about that term personally? Because you're so ingrained in the female and mum founder community.
yeah. I think a couple of things. I do remember actually. I think it may have been during lockdown. I remember somebody messaging me that I knew, but not very well. Just I'd posted about something, just saying how hard I was finding it, and I was knackered and I was struggling with work, or whatever I was talking about. And I remember she messaged me, just said, I'm really glad you said that, because it always looks like you know you're I can't remember what she said, but you're always doing these things, and like it's kind of, not that she was saying it's good to know that you also feel rubbish, but it was. And I was a bit like, oh, I feel like I've always been quite honest with how I feel and how difficult it is running a business and how difficult that is around children. I'm definitely not someone that kind of glosses over the, oh, right, I can do all these things, we're all super women, because it's really hard. But I do think, yes, a lot of the load comes on to mums, especially the mental load. We've got the stuff that people actually see us doing, but the stuff that's in our heads constantly going around, like points we've got to book and presents, birthday presents we've got to get, and all of that stuff weighs heavy as well. But I think that I'd like to talk about, and I think more people do talk about this now, is that we're not doing it all. Like, the amount of things that I am doing, I've got more that I'm dropping. Like, I've got more balls that are dropping, and I'm not doing very well. I'm not seeing my friends enough. I'm not spending enough time with my partner. I'm not exercising. So there's so many other things that I'm not doing so well. And I think people just tend to see the things that you are doing and think that you can manage it all, but
Yeah.
no one is managing it all at all. There's always stuff that's failing. you're not always like winning at life. There's always something you've had to compromise
Had
with.
to drop.
There is no balance. Like, one day you could be with the kids all day and not be answering emails, and the next day you could be like, speaking at an event and then not seeing the kids at bedtime. So I just think, we are doing a lot of stuff, but we are definitely not doing it all, and I don't think it's possible to do it all, and it's not something that we should aspire to do, because it's,
No.
we'd all just be dead on the floor.
Robots. It would take away our humanness, and that's for sure. Because I think also,
Yeah,
like, for example, if you're sat here recording in a horrendously messy house, not naming any names about myself, but it is that's something that's had to drop recently, and it's
yeah,
driving me and my husband mad. But we're just kind of getting through some busy work times and family life, and it's more important we sit and play Lego with our kids than
exactly. And it's
make our
life,
home
isn't it?
Instagram friendly.
Yeah, it's just life. And I just think more, I think potentially it's because there's so many people that portray that they can do it all. They can be, amazing wife and amazing mum and business owner, but actually it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real, because they're covering up stuff that they're not doing well. So I think
Or
just,
they've got help, they're in a
or
position. I
they've got
think that's
help.
really
Exactly.
important to
Yeah.
talk about, because actually a fellow mum business owner just messaged me about the podcast actually, and said, have you got someone helping you? And I was like, that's a really good point. I need to be transparent that
Mm,
I'm not just running a business and then
yeah.
trying to start another. I've got
Yeah.
help with it, and that's why it's been the right time, because financially I'm in a position to do so with the
Yeah.
idea. So I think that's so, whether it's little help, like that's big help, but or it's like a full-time nanny at home, I think it's really important to start having that honesty
Yeah.
about what you've got, and not shaming people that have that help as
No,
well.
exactly. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I think had another founder on here who spoke about, they got shamed, they've got a cleaner each week.
Yeah. It's always something that people find a little bit like, oh, I don't want to like Oh, it's embarrassing. It's just, it's crazy, isn't it? Absolutely
Yeah, and when
crazy.
she was trying to be open, and I was like, "You're not there saying you've got a housekeeper 5 days a
Mm,
week," which good for you if you did. I'd be like, "What stage do you have to get at to get one of those?"
yeah.
But you've just got to a stage where you can have a cleaner each week. What's the shame in that? And I think that's really good. So it's the 2 point. It's a great point to talk about is being open about your help. But then if someone else has help, don't shame them on it. Just be
Yeah,
thankful that they're being open about it, I think.
exactly. Exactly. Just be honest. Be more honest.
Let's be honest. That's what this whole conversation has come round to. And in respect of honesty, what does, because you've still got two little ones, what does
Mm.
your normal week, like work week, look like?
Yeah, it's never completely the same, but my eldest is at school, so he's kind of, that's routine wise is good. My little one's still at preschool, so we kind of, again, help wise, we're lucky that we've got grandparents nearby to help out, and we've also got like a part-time nanny that helps out a couple of hours a week.
Oh, great.
So they're looked after about four days, and it's, do you know what, it's mainly actually me not being at home. I very rarely, like, if for things like this, or if I've only got like a half, like on some days I have to be back early to pick my little one up, but it's mostly me working either at co-working events with members, or searching new venues, or just getting out and going to events. I'm very rarely at home, so it's a real nice mix actually of me not being at home.
I know. I'm starting to discover this recently. I need to get out more. I'm so like ready to not be at
Yeah,
home.
yeah.
And so you're the best person to talk to
I'm
about
like the opposite. Like when I'm at
that.
home, I'm like, oh, actually, this is quite nice. And then I'm, oh no, I see the mess everywhere. I need to get out. Yeah.
That's probably why I don't want to be at home
Yeah.
much at the minute.
It's a
Um,
distraction.
Yeah, an interesting question, because I do think sometimes there's that balance of starting your business to work around the kids and have that
Mm,
flexibility, and then finding something you're really ambitious about. And if you're
yeah.
going down the point of fundraising, it's not
Mm.
just about balance. But did you start your business to work around the kids, essentially, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I don't know whether I was lying to myself at the beginning or whether I just didn't realize it, but I always used to think, oh, I'm doing this for the kid. I'm doing this so I can like pick my son up from school and be there on the holidays and did it. But then when it got to it, I was like, I actually really enjoy working, and this is what I'm doing for me. Obviously being able to be there for the kids and go to assemblies, or pick them up for whatever it is that I need to do, I can do, which I'm really grateful for. But I am doing this for me. I am doing this for me, and I do have lots of plans about how I want to grow the business, but I also am aware that I don't want to be completely absent, and I left the full-time job so I could spend more time with the kids. But then you end up really enjoying what you're doing and thinking, oh, actually, should I be,
Yeah.
like, I had this real battle in my head of sending my little one to preschool on a Friday and just thinking it was only like 2 hours. And I was like, I should be spending time with him because I can, like, and beating myself about the fact that on a Friday I should spend all day Friday with him. Why am I sending him? I was like, I'm so busy. I've got so much to do. I just need those. And it's helped me so much, and I'm better than with him when I've got that bit of work done, and then I can spend from 12:30 instead of 7 in the morning with him. And I just think, why do we beat ourselves up so much about what we should be doing and shouldn't be doing, whether we're sending them to full day childcare, whether we're looking after them all the time? There's always something we're not doing well enough, and we're like
Yeah.
our own worst enemy. But I just think you've got to do what, for me, I've got to do what makes me the best parent and the most happiest and the calmest, because then that filters down to them. Whereas if I'm like stressed all the time, then that's gonna filter
It's so
down to
true. I
them.
did that going from 3 to 4 days a week last year, and I like kind of clung on for ages, and then I realized I had to work Fridays because I'd be a better mum on the
Yeah.
weekends because I
Yes.
could
Yeah.
tie everything up, and
Yeah.
that's why I have a random Wednesday off instead, because it's not a
Yeah.
Monday or a Friday, because that's really hard as a business owner to do
I
those
know.
days.
But
And
working is so much
yeah,
easier than kids.
yes, it really
It's just
is.
so much
Yeah,
easier.
my friend went up to 4 days a week in her employed role, and I was like, how is it? She's like, it's great.
Yeah. It really is. It's so
It's so
much
much easier. I was like, yeah, it's so true. And I can't remember what I was going to say to you now, but no, that's it's so true. And I think we guilt ourselves no matter what,
Mm.
but it's really important. And just a quick one from me. So, how do you manage the school holidays as like a fairly
Oh
new mum
God.
to holidays?
So we try and do, well, depending on what it is, we do try and do a mix of like a camp of some sort for a few days, for like a week.
I was like, a few
Summer
days.
holidays. um, I'm just trying to think how many summer holidays we had with the eldest. We've had maybe 2, I think. Yes, we try and do like a camp, and then we've got some friends, like his friends' parents will do like swap play date type things of a few days. And then grandparents, and then we do try and go away, but it doesn't always happen, I have to be honest, because both of us work for ourselves, so kind of timing, we're not very good at saying, right, we're going to book this holiday and go away for 2. It never happens. So
Yeah.
we're just, each week we're just juggling and trying to manage, or trying to do some work when they're there, but it's so difficult, and the summer holidays are so long. Like, they should
So
not be
long.
that long. It's just, it should be illegal, really.
And come around so quickly. Well, especially half term. Always
Yes.
comes around so quick.
I just feel like it's a lot of pressure because you're having to like fit the work in before the holidays, and then find fun stuff for them to do
Yeah.
that's not really expensive, and then think, oh, am I doing enough? Should I be taking them on all these cool trips that you're seeing everyone doing? And then actually they're just quite happy, like,
At
playing
home.
with some twigs or something. So you like,
I do think there's something on that as well, fellow boy mums as well. Like, often you hear the importance of the example to your daughters, but if our sons are going to be partners to
exactly.
women at one point and maybe have daughters
Yeah,
themselves, it's that I do think there's so much to be said of being a mum who's working for them and to kind of show
exactly.
them
And
what that
normalize
looks
it.
like.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
definitely.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much for joining me
Oh,
today.
thank you.
Can you share what's next for you and the Kindred, what we can expect next from Flock here?
Yeah, so we are, I think I announced today, we're launching the app on the 1st of August, which is very exciting. But then it also means I'm now like, oh my God, I've got so much stuff to do. So that's launching first in
Summer
Hertfordshire.
holidays, well done.
Oh, I meant, obviously, 'cause that's when I've got the most time. We're kind of soft launching. So we're soft launching in the summer, and then we're going to go for the big launch from September. That's when I'm going to do the big launch event. But
Fantastic, clever, yeah.
soft launching obviously I didn't plan it that way, but on purpose. And then, yeah, I'm looking obviously at where we're going to go next, where we're going to, I'd love it to be all across I'd love it to be all across the world, really. So it's just about, managing my time, and obviously hopefully getting a team on board so that we can be in more places across the UK. But yeah, all of my focus now is on that, and bringing a lot of the community aspect that we've got from the Kindred over to the app. And yeah, just getting excited about it now, and it's actually a
Amazing.
thing.
So everyone go and download Flock here this summer. And where can we find you, Danielle?
So I'm on Instagram, FLOCKHERE, and LinkedIn, which I'm really loving at the moment, I have to say.
No one
It's
loves
like,
LinkedIn.
no, I do.
I'll introduce you to my one friend who does.
But on LinkedIn was so good for my crowdfunder, just connecting with people on there. It's still a little bit, judgy, but I quite like the
That's
connection.
true. I think I just need to get past the ego judginess
I
sometimes.
think
Yeah.
so. Once you found people that you can kind of connect with, and like a nice circle
Yeah.
of people, then it is really, really impactful, actually. But yeah, mainly Instagram, I would say, is where I talk about stuff and absolute rubbish.
Well, excellent. And the honest truth about parenthood and running a business. So thank you for always being honest, Danielle. And it's certainly helped me on my journey. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.